7 days. That was all I had left before submitting the most important document of my life, my master's thesis in digital ethics. Months of research, caffeine-soaked weekends, and stolen hours between shifts had poured into that project. I'd given up nights out, birthdays, and even the funeral of a distant cousin to meet deadlines. Every page I wrote felt like stitching together the future I was clawing toward. I didn't have a backup computer, couldn't afford one. My old Dell laptop was everything my vault, my weapon, my proof that I was more than the family footnote. That evening, I was deep into revisions, fine-tuning my citations, when Kale, 19, spoiled and perennially angry at the world, burst through my door without knocking. "Drive me to Lincoln's house," he barked. I didn't even look up. "I can't. I'm working. You always say that. What you think you're better than everyone now." His voice curled with resentment. I stayed calm. "Kale, I have a deadline." "You can Uber." He scoffed. "Whatever. You're such a freak." He turned on his heel and left, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame. I exhaled, shaky but steady. I was used to his tantrums, but 30 seconds later, I heard something that snapped the air in my lungs, a sharp metallic crack, followed by the distinct thud of plastic meeting hardwood. My feet carried me before my brain caught up. In the living room, time slowed. There on the floor was my laptop, its screen split down the center like broken glass keys scattered like teeth. The body was bent. Hinges snapped the power light dark. Coyle stood above it, arms folded, the smirk on his face spreading like a bruise. "Oops," he said. It slipped. My mouth opened, but no sound came. I dropped to my knees, fingers hovering over the ruined shell. My thesis, gone, all of it. I turned to my parents, hoping desperately for outrage, for discipline, for anything. But my mother just chuckled, waving a dismissive hand. "It's just a computer, Lyrian. Don't be dramatic." My father shook his head. "You kids and your screens should have printed it out like we used to." My chest tightened, the room tilting sideways. They weren't going to help. They weren't even going to pretend to care. Kale shrugged. "Maybe next time, don't act like you're the only one who matters." I stood without a word, walked to my room, and quietly turned the lock behind me. The click of the lock was the only sound I could control. Everything else, my breath, my thoughts, the way my fingers trembled, spilled in every direction. I sank to the floor, back against the door heart, hammering in my chest like it was trying to outrun the truth. I had nothing left. No backup drive, no external storage. That laptop had held everything. The thesis, the annotated sources, the interview transcripts, the code I'd written for the final appendix. All of it. Months of work and now just shards of plastic on the floor. My eyes landed on the old tablet buried in the bottom drawer of my desk. It was ancient, slow, and cracked at the corner, but it powered on. That was enough. I pulled it onto my lap and logged into my Gmail. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then salvation. A notification from Google Docs autosave draft. 2 days ago. Not everything, but enough to rebuild. I exhaled through my teeth and got to work, fingers pecking the glass screen like I was defibrillating a dying body. I made new folders, one on Drive, another on Dropbox, then one on an old cloud account I hadn't touched since college. I copied every surviving version, every attachment, every email thread with my advisor. Then I started backing up more than the thesis. Old receipts, personal messages, password logs, chat logs between Kyle and his friends from when he used my computer just for music, screenshots from my phone of Kyle flashing money, texts where he'd said, "It's not like they'll ever know." I backed up everything. Some of it wasn't even relevant yet. But something in me knew this wasn't about just a broken laptop. It was about a pattern, a storm I'd been excusing for years because it had always blown over. But this time, it had landed squarely on my future. In the final folder I created, I named it carefully. Not documents, not backups, just fail-safe. And when I finished uploading the last screenshot, I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen, then reached for my coat. The library stayed open late. The next morning, I walked the 6 blocks to the pawn shop 2 towns over with my grandmother's necklace in my coat pocket. It wasn't much, just a slender gold chain with a tiny peridot pendant, but it was the only valuable thing I still had that wasn't tied to a bank account Coyle could trace. I didn't look the man in the eye when he handed me $63 and change. It wasn't worth arguing. I used half to buy 2 flash drives and a prepaid transit card. The rest I tucked into my sock. Home was no longer a place where I could concentrate, let alone feel safe. So that night, and the ones after, I took the late bus to the university library. I found a quiet spot in the back and typed, like my life depended on it, because it did. The air smelled like paper and disinfectant. The vending machines became my kitchen, a sleeve of saltines and a warm soda every night. Mrs. Halberd, the evening librarian, noticed me after the 3rd night. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a reservation slip for the overnight computer station and said softly, "They're quieter," near the window. I nearly cried when she started leaving them out for me without asking. Between sessions, I retyped whole pages from memory. I reconstructed annotated bibliographies, pieced together graphs from screenshots I'd sent to classmates. Every saved word was another step out of the pit Coyle had thrown me into. One night, while uploading backups to a new folder on my flash drive, I glanced at Cale's public Instagram. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe guilt, maybe silence. But there he was, posted up in someone's basement, grinning with a bottle of imported vodka in one hand and his middle finger in the air. Caption: wrecked a nerd's whole life and still made it to Lincoln's. Priorities, man. And just below a photo tag, thanks for the Grey Goose Dad. I screenshotted the post and saved it to failsafe, then clicked through to his tagged purchases. There were more. The vodka bottle was just the beginning. That night, still stiff from hours hunched at the library terminal, I opened my laptop at a corner table, under dim yellow lights, and typed in the log-in credentials to the family's joint banking portal. Credentials my mother had once texted me when she needed help paying a bill. She had never changed them. I wasn't sure what I was looking for at first. Maybe proof of the liquor something to show they'd paid for it and Cale had taken advantage. But what I found pulled me in like a riptide. Dozens of charges, recurring ones. One from a sketchy ID printing website, another for a hotel room in Atlantic City booked in my name, a stereo system Cale had bragged about for weeks, hundreds of dollars in online game credits, electronics, fast fashion, all filtered through a shared credit line. Then I saw it. A $2 $500 student line of credit opened under Leary Ann Solace. I stared at the digital application, heart lodged in my throat. The signature was mine, but not. It was Kyle's idea of mine, copied sloppily from a birthday card. The contact email was his, the phone number his, but the SSN mine. I felt sick, not just because of the betrayal, but because of how easily he'd done it, how confidently, how predictably. I downloaded every monthly statement, every transaction, timestamped the activity, then cross-referenced them with screenshots I'd already collected from his social media. Then I created a new encrypted folder within the failsafe directory. I named it Cale OS Evidence Chain. There were over 40 files by the time I was done. I wasn't just trying to finish my thesis anymore. I was trying to protect my name, my record, my future, from someone who thought it was a game. The last document I uploaded was the forged credit line application. I stared at it for a long time, then closed the tab and returned to my thesis draft. As I started reformatting my bibliography, an idea from the previous semester drifted back an old blog post I'd written on data ownership. I was copying old blog content into backup folders trying to reconstruct some citations from memory when a message pinged from one of my cohort classmates, Celine, someone I'd shared coffee and crisis with more than once in the TA lounge. "Hey," she wrote, "wild question. Your brother's name is Cale, right?" My heart lurched. I stared at the screen before typing. "Yeah. Why?" she replied instantly. "He's in my ethics seminar. Just got major praise for this piece on digital responsibility. It sounded familiar. My throat tightened. I opened the student blog where I'd published a piece last year titled Digital Consent and Algorithmic Bias, a Case for Reform. It had gotten decent traction, shared by a few adjuncts, even mentioned in a guest lecture. My name was on it, my research, my arguments. I found Kyle's submission in the online student portal where recent outstanding entries were showcased. It was mine. Every sentence, the structure, the phrases, the closing paragraph about dignity over data, all lifted word for word. He hadn't even bothered to change the formatting. I sat frozen, the nausea returning in waves. He'd plagiarized me. Not just any essay, but one directly tied to my academic field. If anyone noticed, if anyone traced it, it wouldn't just be his mess, it would follow me. The department might see it as duplication, a violation. My entire thesis could be questioned. He hadn't stolen a laptop this time. He'd stolen my voice. I opened my notes and started documenting the links, screenshots, publication timestamps, the email receipt from when I first published the piece. I uploaded it all into KLS evidence chain and backed it up 3 times. The theft wasn't just financial anymore. He was erasing me academically, professionally, piece by piece. I looked around the silent library. No one saw the war unfolding on my screen. No one knew I was fighting to stay intact. I opened a new tab and searched for the university's Academic Integrity Office. Before submitting anything, I saved a fresh draft of my thesis and double-checked the latest backup. The next file I opened wasn't mine, it was his. The final paragraph took longer than it should have, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to feel something when I typed it. Relief, triumph, closure. But all I felt was a throb in my spine and a tension in my jaw that hadn't left since the night everything shattered. Still, I reread it. Once, twice, then I hit submit. My thesis, the one they thought they had buried under laughter and glass, was gone from my hands, uploaded to the graduate portal, time-stamped and confirmed. I closed the tab and opened a new one. The first email went to the University Ethics Committee. I attached the original blog post, the time-stamped version from the student portal, and the screenshots of Coyle's paper. I laid it out, clinically date source match. I kept emotion out of it. They didn't need my heartbreak. They needed proof. The second email went to the editorial inbox of Campus Synthesis, a student-run magazine where Coyle had submitted another plagiarized piece this time, one that bore my name in the byline. The article had landed in my inbox weeks earlier for edits, but I'd assumed it was spam or a mistake. Now I knew better. I included my real bio, the link to the original content, and the forwarded submission he'd stolen. The third email went to the student legal clinic. This one was longer. I detailed the forged loan, the credit card abuse, the hotel room in my name. I attached every receipt, every account log, every matching document from the bank's site. The folder alone was over 100 MB. I took a breath before hitting send. Outside, the sun was already rising. Kyle was probably passed out somewhere, drunk on stolen liquor and his own arrogance. He had no idea the walls were closing in. I gathered my things, zipped the flash drives into the lining of my coat, and caught the first bus home. The house was silent when I entered. I walked past his door without looking in. He was still sleeping when the first email hit his inbox. The call came 3 days later. The bank's fraud division had flagged the credit line as suspicious. The investigator's tone was clipped and professional, but the meaning was clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was criminal. They asked if I could appear with supporting documentation. I said I'd bring everything. Kyle was summoned. My parents found out from the letter addressed to the house. I heard my mother's voice crack in the kitchen when she read it. My father's footsteps grew louder, angrier. That evening, they cornered me in the hallway. "You're tearing us apart over some money," my mother said, eyes wide, arms folded, as if the accusation belonged to me. I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "Kyle did that when he forged my name. You just laughed when he broke what mattered. Neither had a response. At the hearing, Cale showed up in a wrinkled shirt, sweating before he even took the stand. He claimed it was a misunderstanding. He said he'd been under emotional stress, that he thought the credit line was just a formality, that he didn't mean harm. But I had receipts. I laid out the timeline, the screenshots, the statements, the matching email addresses, the forged signature compared to my real one. I spoke calmly without anger. The truth didn't need volume. The judge read silently for several minutes, then looked directly at Kyle. This wasn't a mistake, she said. It was calculated fraud. She ruled in my favor. Restitution $67,000. Kyle's accounts were frozen. He paled. My father exhaled like someone had pulled a plug from his chest. My mother gripped her purse like it could anchor her to the floor. They didn't speak to me as we left the courthouse. They didn't have to. The silence said more than any apology ever could. That night, I packed my things quietly. The acceptance email from the think tank in Boston was waiting in my inbox. Boston felt like a different planet. Colder air, sharper sidewalks, and no one who looked at me like a mistake. The think tank welcomed me quietly. No fanfare, just trust. I was given a desk, a key card, and room to think. For the first time in years, I was in a place where people asked for my ideas, not my silence. The emails from home stopped. I didn't chase them. Weeks passed. Then one morning I got a message from someone named Olivia Harness, editor-in-chief of an emerging investigative outlet. She'd been tracking a series of academic fraud cases tied to a cluster of universities. My brother's name had surfaced more than once. I found your name in the court transcripts, she wrote. Would you be willing to talk? I sat with the message for 3 days. I wasn't sure what scared me more, speaking or staying quiet. But the truth had cost me enough already. It didn't owe anyone secrecy. So I agreed. I didn't rant. I didn't vilify. I just told the story, the laptop, the silence, the forged credit line, the courtroom, the email where my mother begged me to stop. The last thing I said was simple. Some people get to fail quietly. Others have to survive loudly. The article ran with the headline, Family Loyalty or Family Scapegoat. It caught fire. My old professors shared it. 2 neighbors from back home emailed me, saying they always wondered why I disappeared. One of my high school teachers wrote, "We knew you'd break through, but my family didn't send a word. My father's pending promotion at his company was suspended indefinitely. Something about concerns with judgment and internal compliance." My mother's book club removed her from their group email. Cale's internship interviews evaporated. Companies pulled offers. He tried to argue bias online, but facts had timestamps, receipts, a court record. They didn't lose everything because I spoke. They lost it because they thought no one would ever listen. Then came the email from our real estate acquisitions team about a property they'd just secured. The estate was a 19th century brick manor that sat just outside the edge of town, quiet, wooded, with sprawling gardens that once hosted the local mayor's daughter's wedding. My organization had purchased it to convert into a research and leadership retreat. The proposal passed without much attention until I saw the address. We used to go there every summer when I was little. The Solace family reunion potluck tables, folding chairs, Cale pretending to DJ while adults gossiped under string lights. I remembered running barefoot through the gravel driveway and being told not to track dirt into the parlor. When the team asked me to oversee programming for the inaugural retreat, I said yes without hesitation. A week before the event, my assistant forwarded me an email from the estate's new booking system. It was from my parents. Subject line, Annual Solace Reunion Booking Inquiry. I didn't answer it directly. I just revised the auto-response template for family requested events, bookings subject to owner approval, requests involving individuals with unresolved litigation or prior abuse will be declined. We sent the email. No reply came. Until the morning of the retreat. I was walking the perimeter with the program director when a familiar gray sedan pulled into the gravel loop. My parents stepped out, slowly dressed as if arriving for a church service. My father held a folder. My mother squinted at the entryway like it would greet her. They didn't recognize me at first. The white suit, the team ID lanyard, the straightened spine, none of it matched the girl they'd watched unravel over kitchen counters. Then I spoke. "Good morning. You're not on today's guest list." My mother flinched like the voice startled her more than the words. My father stared jaw tight as if hoping silence could rewind what he was seeing. "We didn't realize you were—" he began, but I raised a hand gently. "You did," I said. "You just never imagined I'd be the one holding the keys." They looked at each other suddenly, smaller, suddenly unsure. And when they asked if I might reconsider, I gave them the kindest smile I had left. My mother stepped forward. First, her voice barely steady. "Leary Ann, we didn't know it would go this far." I tilted my head. "Didn't you?" Her hands trembled at her sides. "He was just struggling. You've always been stronger. We didn't mean to choose. We just—" "You did," I said without anger. "And now I have too." My father cleared his throat. "Please, don't turn the world against your brother. He's lost enough already." I let the silence stretch between us, watched him search for sympathy that no longer lived here. "I didn't turn anyone against him," I said. "He did that all by himself. I just stopped covering for him." They didn't argue. I think in some quiet place they knew they couldn't. "We didn't come to fight," my mother whispered. "We just wanted one more summer. The reunion. One more time with everyone together." I nodded once gently. "There's a lovely public park 2 towns over," I said. "You'll find it less intimidating." Her lips parted as if to respond, but no sound came. I turned without waiting, walked across the gravel path and through the tall doors of the estate. My steps were calm measured. No trembling, no need for raised voices or slammed doors, just quiet authority. Behind me they stood still, unsure whether to follow or retreat. I didn't look back to check. Inside the foyer echoed with footsteps that belonged to people who respected the space and the woman leading it. I passed the reception desk, nodded at my assistant, and made my way toward the conference room where the keynote speaker waited. The retreat would begin in an hour. Through the window, I caught one last glimpse of the car reversing down the loop. 2 figures inside looking smaller than I ever remembered. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. They came to the gates like they always had, expecting them to open for them. But I was the gate now, the lock, the key, and this time I chose to keep it closed.